I did a research on the relationship between the pine cones and the humidity. I looked around my house, I saw many pine cones, and I see when after the rain falls, the pine cones close up, while on sunny days, the pine cones open up. So I wanted to figure out the direct, clear relationship between the pine cones and the humidity. What basically I did was first I collected 16 pine cones, plain pine cones, and for the second step I stick the needle to each pine cone. And thirdly, I measure the daily angle of each pine cone, and I also recorded the humidity according to it. What really happened was when the humidity was very low, the needle headed downward and the pine cone opened up, while when the humidity was high, the pine cone closed up and the needle headed upward. So you can see that the higher the humidity is, the more the pine cone closes up. These are some more results, data that I collected. If you look on the left, there is a table. And the really important piece that you should notice are the top row and the last row. The top row should match with the last row, and the top row is basically a bunch of daily humidity that I collected for 10 days. And the bottom row are the data on the average angles of the 16 pine cones. If you look on the right, there's a graph that clearly shows the direct proportional relationship between the average angles of 16 pine cones and the humidity. So when the humidity was at max, the average angle of 16 pine cones was also max, and when the humidity was also at min, the average angles of 16 pine cones was also at min. This just shows very clear graph of trend of how the higher the humidity is, the larger the angles of the 16 pine cones. What is really going on is osmosis. That is the basic biological principle underlying this situation. On the left, you can see a diagram of the pine cone scales and the pine cone cells at a molecular level. And when the humidity is low, the pine cone cells are just fine. They don't swell up or anything. But when the humidity is high, very importantly, the water concentration is relatively high in the air, so that means that there are more water molecules in the air than inside the pine cone cells. This creates this water potential, which is basically the difference between the water concentration in the air and in the cell. So because of this difference, the water molecules would want to balance out this difference and make the water potential zero. That's their goal. So to do that, the water molecules would diffuse into the pine cone cells, and this process is called osmosis, which is the diffusion of the water molecules. As the water molecules diffuse into the pine cone cells swell up, and these swollen pine cone cells push the scales upward as their size grow larger. So basically, this is really what's going on. Osmosis is really what's going on. In conclusion, pine cones are hygromorphs, which are the objects that change their appearance based on humidity, the changes in humidity. So you can use them. You can use pine cones as natural hygrometers. No need to buy one. Thank you for listening.